Drago mi je da mogu predstaviti Danielle Ralic ili Ralić iz kompanije Intrepid d.o.o. Daniela će napraviti svoj pitch na engleskom, ako sam ja to dobro zapamtio. Evo Daniele, drago nam je da si ovdje s nama i kad si spremna možeš početi svojom prezentacijom.
Hvala i oprostite ako idem na hrvatski, bit će brutalno tako. Nema ovako. Okay.
Može.
Samo tren, jer se vidi prezentacija?
Vidi se.
Super, ok. Onda bog, ja sam Danielle Ralic. Ok, sad ćemo malo na engleski. So I'm the CEO, CTO of Intrepid d.o.o. What we do is we have a solution called AI, which I'll talk a little bit about today. So first, a little bit about the theme. So we are in healthcare, zdravstvo, and really on the innovation side of healthcare. So as we look for new medicines and things like that, you might be seeing some headlines like there's a cure for cancer coming. We're investigating things like cell therapy, gene therapy. So if you're in the oncology space or in cancer, it's really interesting right now to see the types of things that are being developed. So they're actually looking at mRNA, we're looking at cancer vaccines. So it's really exciting to see what's in the pipeline for the future treatment of things like cancer. Now, to go from very cool idea to something you'll actually get in a hospital, there's a process called clinical trials or kliničke ispitivanje. So basically clinical trials are where we sit down and we say, okay, for these new treatments, these new diagnostic ideas like testing for cancer by using blood or ctDNA, we need to make sure that they're safe, effective, and better than what's out there. So they go through this process of clinical trials. This is the process that if you're a patient, if you are on these trials, you get the medicine for free. And as I just kind of mentioned, some of these really cool innovations, you get access to them before they get approved and before they are on the market, which takes a very long time because there's a lot of negotiation that needs to happen between then and now. So the only really unfortunate thing about clinical trials is that we're absolutely shit at it. So clinical trials, this critical process of taking innovation in diagnostics, innovation in treatments, and bringing them to the market, bringing them to people like you and I when we go to doctor visits, takes a very long time, costs a lot of money, and is very inefficient. So before the pandemic, 80% of trials were delayed due to recruitment. So that's just the challenge of finding patients to join the trial. And then when you look at patients, only 20% of them even hear about trials as an option from their doctor. So they're not really getting the information. And then you go to the doctor side, it's more than 80% of them think that trials could help patients, but they just don't have the time and the resources to look for them. And all of this, of course, costs us a lot of time to be able to go through clinical trials, so delays in accessing this medicine, but it costs $4 billion a year to the pharmaceutical industry. And you would argue also more in terms of lives that we're losing because we're not getting this innovation to market fast enough. And so you might ask, what's the problem? So to find a clinical trial, you have to go to these public registries or databases where people are inputting just tons of PDFs or tons of word text. And as a physician, if you would say, I'm interested for my patient, they're stage 4 lung cancer and it's non-small cell, which is really difficult to treat, I would have to go and start reading through hundreds of these documents that have text that's not usually this pretty, but you can see not very light on the reading. And what we've seen is that, especially in oncology or let's say kind of cancer, that now with personalized medicine, we have a lot of complexity introduced in trials where we're looking at tumor mutational burden and prior therapies because people are kind of living longer now with cancer. So the complexity is growing. The data is a hot mess. It's a bunch of unstructured text, and it's kind of the bleeding edge of medicine as well, which makes it really difficult to go through this information. And so I started in core because I had the hypothesis that we could likely use technology, which is good at really crappy jobs like that, to help make sure that in the future, every patient can have trials considered as part of their treatment planning from the point of when you're diagnosed. And why that's really important is that with these cancer advances, the time where a doctor will start to look into trials for you is when it's usually too late. So you'll try the standard treatment options, and basically, as they're not working, trials are a last resort. And all of that text I just showed is what helps a doctor see if they'll take you as a patient or what they're not looking for in terms of patients. And if you've been heavily pretreated, you'll likely lose out on a lot of really cool trial opportunities. And again, just kind of reiterate that innovation in medicine I highlighted up front. Things like cell therapy can help patients avoid chemo. And if you've ever had friends or family go through chemo, I think you'll know how brutal that is to the body. So really there's incredible advances, incredible treatments available that could save lives if patients could access them at all points throughout this journey. And so kind of what's the solution? We've been building out a hub or a platform where all of the different stakeholders that make clinical trials happen can come together. And basically we're helping in terms of coordination, and we're using AI, specifically natural language processing, to help us go through that unstructured hot mess of text and structure it so that we can enable it to do patient matching. So we can do personalized matching of clinical trial results for patients at scale. And that's a pretty big deal in the medical world. And so to date, we've built a free patient-facing module. So one of our mission statements is that we really democratize access to this, because right now you'll usually only hear about it if you're at one of the top research hospitals. So our app, Ancora.ai, is free. It's for patients to look for solid tumors right now. Blood cancers come out in 2 months. But that app, please play around with it. And we also have a physician module, which we're launching with hospitals now. So we're in pilots with hospitals in Europe and the US to see how our tool can better support nurses and doctors so they can do this check for trials for every one of their patients. And again, not when they're really out of options. So kind of those are our 2 modules. And so we're looking that we can expand access so all patients are a part of it. We can drastically reduce the cost of developing drugs if we can bring inefficiencies to this process. And lastly, take all this awesome medicine that's still just sitting in research and bring it out so we can all access it. And who we're looking for is we're looking for a front-end developer that's looking to build applications for patients and doctors. And we're also looking for a senior developer data engineer who's interested in optimizing data pipelines and operationalizing machine learning models. So if that's you, definitely give me a call. And this is our beautiful team in Zabad for our summit that happened 2 months ago. So thanks so much.